Step into the vibe, let me tell you what's real.
In the shadows and the light, there's power to feel.
Voices of ABBA, bringing wisdom like gold.
We won't let the stories of our lives go untold. Change is a whisper that you can't ignore. The future's a heartbeat, it's knocking at the door. Every lesson learned, every truth that we find, with purpose in our steps and the world in our mind.
We're standing on true knowledge.
Welcome back to Truth and Legacy. In episode 1 and 2, we talked about the man before the leadership. We talked about childhood, pain, fatherhood, survival. But today, I want to talk about the leader, the man who spent over 20 years building ABBA, serving the community, and carrying a vision bigger than himself. Because leadership changes you, responsibility changes you, and eventually every real leader reaches a moment where they realize the mission has to outlive them. So today, I want to understand the journey from survival to leadership and how you knew it was time to start passing the torch. When did you realize surviving wasn't enough anymore?
Oh, I realized that early. Well, it wasn't early in my life. At the age of 29, I realized the lifestyle that I was living was leading me towards my own destruction. And so I wanted to change that in a dramatic way. And, I have to say that the Lord provides our footsteps. And because he directed me to a mission. And that mission was the genesis of my whole life turning around and God directed me to the path that I was supposed to lead.
What mentally did you have to leave behind to become the man people know today?
Well, my old self-destructive attitude, the way that I looked at the world was somewhat blurred and I would say stained by some of the negative experience I had growing up. But I had to get that out of my system, number one, if I was going to become the person I believe God wanted me to be.
Do you think structure saved your life in some ways?
I would say that I learned structure as a part of working under your great-grandmother who had a very structural environment and welcomed me into it and made me a part of her leadership. So under her leadership, I learned structure and the importance of having structure and organization. I realized that you just can't haphazardly do things and expect to get it done. Right now, one of the things I talk about, no matter what program I deal with, we have to have a plan. We have to have a goal. We have to have a budget even, because I know that structure, if you're going to achieve your goal, you must have a structure to do that.
A lot of people know how to hustle, but not how to build. When did you learn the difference?
That's a good point. Really wasn't any dramatic difference. What happened is I learned that I didn't have to scheme and plot. I just had to be sincere and focused. And one thing I've learned about people, if they see sincerity in you and passion in you, those people will join you in what you're doing, particularly if you're trying to impact a community.
When ABBA first came to your mind, what did you really want to create?
Well, think about it. I was working in the jail as a chaplain in 2002. And part of the things that we did in the jail, we wanted to work with the young people, 16 to 24, and realizing that most of them didn't have a father in their lives and how that impacted them. 85% of the men and women that was in the jail either had fathers that was ineffective and not really in their lives, or no father at all. So out of that, I began to visualize the concept of ABBA Leadership Center, because the word ABBA itself simply means father. And the ministry that I was creating was focused around those types of issues. How can you be a positive male role model in these young men and women lives? And how could you be that father figure that they seem to lack, which lead to them into their destructive behavior?
Did you know Did you know this would become part of your legacy, or were you just trying to help people at first?
I still didn't know that till today. What I did was out of a passion and a focus and a commitment. Some of the things that I do today came to mind during that first 3 years because I actually dreamed and started developing ABBA in 2002. ABBA didn't become a ministry, or we didn't get our corporation into 2005. So for 3 years, I sat there visualizing how we can create ABBA, how it could be effective, and how it could impact the community. What I wanted to do that was different than what other people was doing, because the same old method and the same old stuff wasn't working.
What kept you going through the years where nobody really saw the full vision yet?
Well, what kept me going realistically was my passion. I believed in what I was doing, and I never really thought about a timeline. What happened is, as I began to get into the ministry and the work, the people, I had good friends that came alongside of me. Matter of fact, when I left Long Island Youth Mentoring, some of the people that were supporting me financially, my prayer partners, actually literally just moved over. And there was one guy that told me, it's about time. I see that you had bigger calling on your life. You had bigger works. So for you extending yourself there, I was going to support you as long as you be there, but I'm going to double down to support you now.
What did building ABBA cost you personally?
It didn't cost me. In fact, it made me who I am today. The work that I was doing, the commitment that I had to the community, helped to develop me into the person that I am today. Getting involved with people's lives, understanding what people are going through without the technical stuff, without the bureaucracy, just knowing the heart and the passion in people and how they suffer is what motivated me to keep moving and gave me incentive to want to do more. As you understand, we only had 3 or 4 programs when we first started. Now we have several. And that's a part of that growth process.
What do people misunderstand most about leadership?
Most people think that being in leadership is easy. You jump into position and all of that. A lot of people just like the title. I find out a lot of people don't really want to go to do the work. They just want to be called Mr. So-and-so and President this and Governor that or whatever. But they don't have the real passion for the work. Matter of fact, most of my friends that know me a long time either call me Brother Reggie or Reverend Benjamin. No fancy titles.
Do you think being strong for everybody can sometimes become emotionally heavy?
The only time something like that might become emotionally heavy is because when you get into people's lives, they're suffering. That kind of thing will slow you down for a minute. But I always been at the mindset of don't dwell on the problem, just sit there on the problem, come up with a solution. So anytime I seen a situation, in my mind, it was more of what can we do to change it? I never sat there and soaked on anything. What can I do to change it? What can we do to make it better? How do I implement something that will grow us into a way that we would be more effective at helping people?
What hurts you more now, seeing people struggle or seeing people give up on themselves?
I don't know if I'm hurt by it. I'm somewhat bothered when I see people suffer. Some of the things I've learned, a lot of people that suffer unnecessarily. So even when I'm looking at people going through stuff, I'm saying, what is the solution to this situation? When you think about, for example, people caught up into drugs and stuff like that, and the excuses that they make to continue it, in my mindset is if you can get them away from the excuses, then you can begin to make change in people's lives.
What kind of leader do you think the community needs right now?
So, we need people in this community, I can tell you, without even giving it a second thought, they need leadership that really cares. Not people that are trying to get into position just to say that they have power. We need a passionate leadership, a leadership that understands the needs of the people and not just sit there and learn the needs of the people to pontificate about it, but to do something to change.
At what point did you realize leadership is also about preparing for the next generation?
Obviously, if you're going to be an effective organization, you have to prepare for the past to mantle. There's no effective organization that I know of that can be effective if they don't create opportunities to pass the mantle. For example, I've been doing this kind of work over 35 years. Do you think that I should keep going? I'd watch leaders that'll sit in a chair until they die. Wonderful people. I have tremendous respect for John Kurtz, for example, who started EOC. But he passed away in that seat. Talk about a person like Mel Jackson with LTI, Leadership Training Institution. A powerful organization, but he had no leadership to pass on to the next generation. And even, I don't want to talk negative about anyone else, but the strength of that organization have somewhat dwindled just because I believe he didn't take the time out to train people or to prepare somebody to take up the mantle.
When did you start seeing me, not just as your son, but as someone capable of leading?
Well, from the time you was little. You don't remember or recall the times I would have you to stand in front of people and speak, and I watched how the crowd reacted to you. I remember the kids were so excited, even when you was just reading the Bible. And let alone talk about your presentation in terms of talking to young people themselves. I said, this guy, he is ready. And so we spent, how long we working together? 20 years? You mean to tell me you can't take over now? My God.
Was it emotionally difficult realizing it might be time to slowly pass the torch?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And as soon as I can, I'm going down south. Bye.
What lessons were most important to you to pass down before stepping back?
Remember the importance of your organization. Always have structure to your organization. Always have plans. In my organization, I start planning from the beginning of the year for the end till the end of the year. I don't just haphazardly do anything. Planning is the only way that you're going to be successful. And so in any organization, you should have 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 3-year plans, so that when you move into those areas, you don't get sidetracked.
I think a lot of people see leadership as power, but real leadership is sacrifice, it's responsibility, it's building something meaningful enough that it can continue beyond you. And I think that's what tonight was really about. Not just what you build, but what you're leaving behind in people. That was truth and legacy. Thank you for watching.
Step into the vibe, let me tell you what's real.
In the shadows and the light, there's power to feel.
Voices of ABBA bringing wisdom like gold.
We won't let the stories of our lives go untold. Change is a whisper that you can't ignore. The future's a heartbeat, it's knocking at the door. Every lesson learned, every truth that we find, with purpose in our steps and the world in our mind.
We're standing on true knowledge is ours.